Greetings to all, and welcome to another presentation of the Adrian Dominican Sisters, A Sister Story. Today, I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and I'm going to have a conversation with our Sister Dorothy Glaister, formerly known as Sister Paul Dennis. She'll explain how she got her nun name. But let's just begin, Dorothy, with people like to know your beginnings. You know, where you grew up and some issues about the family, because family is so much a part of us and how you grew up. So, and I'll just let you talk, and at times I'll just interrupt a bit. Okay, and thank you for persevering with this, beginning this little show this morning. Okay, Dorothy, you may begin.
Morning, Peg. I just wanted to tell you that one thing I heard right from you was that, and this has happened for so many years, but my last name is Glaister.
What did I say? Glaister.
Glaister. And most everyone in the world says Glaister. So I have to always correct people and tell them it's Sister Dorothy Glaister.
Long A. Okay.
Glaister.
No, seriously, our names are important, very important. That's what I need to check on with the others.
But I grew up on the north side of Chicago, which of course is kind of different in our community because it seems like everybody that came from Chicago came from the south side.
Right.
I always say the north side, as if it's a strange foreign land. But I was born in Queen of Angels Parish, and that was the only Adrian Dominican school at the time on the north side. And of course, the south side had, I don't even know how many parishes and where our sisters were working at. My mother actually went to Queen of Angels School, and it just is kind of interesting that that's been in our history. I was born on May 11th, and it was Mother's Day. And my mother had been married, really somewhat late in life, and she was 38 years old.
Oh.
Father was 42. And unexpectedly, they were now having twins.
Oh, interesting.
And that was hard in those days because they didn't have all the medical things. So they had some very kind of bad news given to them about this birth of these babies that they didn't know exactly what was going to happen. So my mother always told me that my father went to the church and lit 2 candles, and she always said, "Thank God he didn't light 3." Dennis and Dorothy arrived on May 11th, and actually 5 years later, she had another baby.
Oh my.
It was very interesting. My brother, Eugene, or Gene is his name. So I went to Queen of Angels, to our school, to our sisters, and I really had, from the beginning, as so many of us have experiences with our nuns, I just loved them. And I was thinking when I was talking about this, getting ready for this talk with you, our life then was totally surrounded by the parish. I mean,
right.
Thing in my life, in our whole family life, revolved around the parish. And in fact, all of our relatives, and we had a very large family. My mother was the youngest of 9 children, so there was all kinds of aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. And my father only had 1 sister. But so our whole life revolved around the parish, really,
Did you, I know in our area, we identified where we lived by the parish.
Yes. Yeah. Of Angels,
Mm-hmm.
And that was always very important. For high school, I went 1 year to a school that was called the Immaculata.
Okay.
The BVM sisters. But my twin brother, I think my family thought it would be good for us to be, kind of on our own, the 2 of us. And he went to St. Benedict's, which was like a parish high school. And it was just starting, and it really had so many activities. And my mother and dad, older as they were like the #1 chaperones at all the things that were going on. In fact, I mean, I had transferred then to St. Benedict's in my sophomore year. It was like I never went to anything that my mother and dad weren't there, because everyone liked them for chaperones. I think particularly my mother, you know, she was very easygoing and very fun and everything, and the kids all loved her. So I kind of grew up as remembering that you know, the kids that we knew in the neighborhood and everyone came to our house. You know, we had a big yard and everyone was in the yard, and so that was kind of a nice thing growing up, you know. But I was thinking about, or pretty much there I had the Franciscan sisters from Layton Avenue in Milwaukee. But I really, from about sixth grade, I really had it in my mind that I was going to be an Adrian Dominican.
Oh.
And I held that, I think it was connected with confirmation, as I remember. But I thought of, you know, in today's world, like I mentioned, the fact that we were so involved in our parish and the church, that I think it was a very natural thing to begin to think of religious life, because that was something that you really knew about and saw kind of in action, I guess, you know. So I did go to Adrian in 1958.
Okay.
And Sister Edmund Marie Sullivan was very instrumental. She was at the parish then as the principal. And the only one I can remember from those years that's really still with us is Sister Rita Burnett, who
Okay.
was in Cecile. And she was there probably when I was in high school years. I had met her, but she must have been very, very, very young. Because I remember that so I never had her in school, but I just knew her that she was part of it. But I always feel very connected to her.
That's nice. That's nice.
She was at Queens, you know. So I entered in 58 and in September, and spent most of my novitiate typing and doing shorthand because no one else in the group did that.
And that follows you the rest of your life.
Followed me the entire life. In my entire life, I have done that. So, during that time, my mother was really not happy at all that I was going to the convent. And
well, the only girl, yeah, the only daughter, yeah, one daughter.
She had much better plans for me, you know, that it pretty much involved marrying some rich man and living in some wonderful family someplace and getting, you know, grandchildren and everything. But I have to tell you that all changed when I got sent to Florida for my first mission. Then she was very happy about it.
Oh, that's good, because they could come and see you.
You know, in the 12, 14, I thought I never know, 12 years I was in Florida, she and my dad came every year.
Oh.
Because she wasn't very strong physically, and she all the time we were growing up, actually, when I think about it, she talked about moving to Florida. We were always going to move to Florida. So when I actually went to Florida, it was a big deal. She was really happy. So I first went to St. James.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, that has a little part of history, because the year that I went there, 1960 to 62, that was the year that the Cuban people.
Right. Okay.
And I want to tell you, we went to Berry College or Berry University. Well, I mean, it just seemed to me we went 2 or 3 times a week to teach people English as a second language.
Okay. Okay.
It was like being part of history now when I hear that, you know, being talked about. That was a very good experience. And it was at St. James, Sister Thomas Raymond or Jean Burns was my first superior. And as we always talked about it, later on, we became very good friends.
That's right. That's right. Wonderful woman.
She was a very, very close friend of mine all through our lives together. So then I taught first grade. That was my first experience. And I have to tell you there, you know, with all the shorthand and typing I didn't do a lot of getting ready to teach first grade, as I remember it. So all of a sudden, I was in first grade, and my little kids were hanging off the chandeliers, as it is, because they were.
Was Sister Virgin there at the time?
What I want to tell you.
You were lucky.
I was blessed, because not only that, Sister Jean Burns took me out of my classroom for a week, put me in Virgin's classroom. She taught first grade. Now remember, Jean Burns was really tall, and that was not her thing, teaching first grade. But she took it for a week, and I went to Virgin's classroom for a week. And I want to tell you, I guess I'd say the rest is history, because I really became a pretty good first grade primary teacher. And that is again something that's bothered me all my life. When you learn really how to teach the reading and the whole process of beginning school, that's a tremendous thing to know, and to be able to give
Phonics, yeah.
that whole phonics thing. So I went to first grade there. Then I went for 5 years to St. Jude's in St. Petersburg, which was a huge school. My mother wondered what I was going to be doing, since everybody was supposed to be retired there. Well, our school, St. Jude's, and it was the cathedral school.
Right.
And, we had 3 classrooms of every grade, so it was a very big school. And from there I went to Rosarian, and I cannot even tell you how much I loved Rosarian. I was teaching in the first, well, of course, it was a totally different experience, because like I was teaching first and second grade. I had 12 little girls in my first and second grade. And but when I got there, the year I got there was when they announced that they were going to phase out the grade school and go to the high school type situation.
Mhm.
So anyhow, I wound up taking these same little 12 girls for 4 years of primary school. So they could never say, oh, nobody ever taught us that, because I knew what I had taught them. But it was there that my mother and dad, they came down, and of course at Rosarian we had a guest house. And not only did they get to come and stay at the guest house in West Palm Beach in January, but my lovely superior, Sister George Elizabeth Beistein, Mary Catherine Beistein, let me stay in the apartment with them. So of course I thought I had died and gone to heaven. So in the morning, my mother, I would go over to school, my mother would come down and sit by the pool, and I would send over one reading group at a time to her, and they'd do their oral reading with her at the pool, and all that stuff. So she just loved all those years.
Oh, of
But
course. That's wonderful.
it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. But what I did want to tell you was that was all of the time that I spent in Adrian Dominican schools, was those years in Florida. And what had happened was, when I was teaching at St. Jude's in St. Petersburg, Monsignor Meehan, who was a wonderful, wonderful man he was, of course, directly from Ireland. I think he had a lot of connections with the Adrian Dominicans, or thought very highly of our community. But one day he came over to my second grade classroom and said, sister, there's a 18 or 19-year-old woman in the parish, and he told me she is a retarded person. And he said, because she's never made her first communion, but she's part of this big family. They come to church every Sunday, but she never can come to communion because she never received religious instruction of that. But of course, she knew more little Catholic things than most people do. And he said, I wonder if you could meet with her and see if you think she could make her first communion. Well, I had never met a handicapped person in my life, but I, of course, said, oh, yes, Father, I will meet with her. So on a Saturday morning, I went over to meet with her, and remember, I was supposed to see if I thought she could receive First Communion. Well, I went over to meet with her, and there were, as I remember it, about 6 young people, in their late teens like that, who had not ever received their First Communion. But the word was out that I was going to teach them.
Wonderful.
Ready for First Communion. So now I have a class of about 6 young adults, handicapped people, and of course I had no curriculum or no idea of what to do. And at that time, and of course, you couldn't Google things like that.
No.
And I looked quite a bit around, and I could find out nothing that said this is how you teach handicapped people. Well, they were there. They came every Saturday, and so I just used the second grade curriculum I was using in school. And anyhow, we soon had, very soon, because they were very ready to receive communion. But So that was my experience in getting into special education. And so when I went to Rosarian, because I'd had that experience, I kind of got into, I even had I would have a group of Rosarian girls, and I had a small group of people from the, area that came in, and they'd come to Rosarian, and I'd have the Rosarian people work with them. And so it was kind of my experience. Well, I was also coming to the end of the time and, getting my degree at Berry, and how, of course, automatically we would go on to get a master's degree. And, well, if anyone had asked me at the time, which didn't happen, of course, no one asked me what I wanted to do as far as getting a degree, but I probably would have asked to go on in administration. I would have liked to have been a school principal and all that good stuff. But because they didn't ask me, well, first of all, I got a note or a little card that said you will get a master's degree in library science.
Oh.
And Ruger Forest. Well, brave thing I was at the time, I did say to Sister Laura, Mother Laura at the time, that I really wasn't interested in getting a library degree, but anyhow, I was interested in special education.
Oh, good.
Another year, I did go to Berry College for a year and do some library work, and I really kind of liked that too, and I learned a lot from that. But Sister Laura saw or found this scholarship to Cardinal Stritch College or University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
It was the only place, really in the whole country, that was offering special education and religious education. So I got a scholarship through the Kennedy Foundation.
Okay.
Also kind of excited about the fact that it was going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is really close to Chicago, Illinois. And of course, we were still on the, every 3-year system of going home. So I thought, well, this would be good. I could go to school, and I could also, see a little bit of my family. So I was kind of surprised when my card came for my degree, and I thought I was going to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I get this card that says St. Coletta School, Jefferson, Wisconsin. I'm going, Jefferson, Wisconsin, where the heck is that? And why am I going there? So what happened was, at that time, well, forever, the Cardinal Stritch University special ed program was offered at St. Coletta School.
Got it. Okay.
It was like a lab school. It was wonderful because we had about 500 handicapped people living there from ages maybe 4 to like 94 that we had on because they had programming for the entire population there. So it was a wonderful experience to go there, and they had all of it, it was so good to be, you were learning all the, academic things, but you were meeting real people and seeing real people and how to work with them and become comfortable with them and learn how to adjust or to work, directly with them. So that's how I got connected with St. Coletta School in Jefferson, Wisconsin, which was very part of my life. Then when I went, at that time we were phasing out the school, remember, at Rosarian. I was coming down, they were my girls were growing up and going to 5th and 6th grade, and I went up for a semester to do an internship at St. Coletta's in Jefferson. Oh, I didn't get to mention, it was only 500 acres and a real farm, an entire working farm. I was really not too excited about being on a farm in my life, but anyway, with the cows and the pigs and everybody, but anyhow, it was a huge place.
When you say, Dorothy, when you say it's a working farm, did the residents help out with all the work?
Residents.
Wonderful.
The farm. The nuns, there was 2 nuns in full habit in charge of the farm. They ran, and they had, I can't even tell you how many, different men from town came in and helped, but the residents all worked, those people, the ones that were appropriate for that, worked on the farm, and they did all the farming. They did everything. It was like a little town unto itself. I don't remember anything coming into us. They did everything there. But anyway, I did an internship. And during the internship, Sister Sheila Haskett, who was the administrator and one of the full-time instructors from Cardinal Stritch, asked me to stay on and be, guess what, principal. So here I, who wanted to be a principal, but said, no, I'll go get a degree in special education.
See? God took care of you.
God took care of me, I'll tell
Holy
you.
Spirit.
So I came back there as principal in, that was 1972. And I wanted to just mention also, as part of that, it was during that time that I met Eleanor Smith.
Okay.
And Eleanor, at that time, she was called Miss Smith because she was returning to the community after being out of her community for 10 years.
Okay.
She was returning at that time. But so she came in and we had re-entered the community. And so I was principal and she was the director of residential programs. So as the kids said, if Dorothy doesn't get you during the day, Eleanor gets you at night, because she was in charge of all the, childcare.
Got it.
And I did the school. But one of the big things that happened there was at the time, and that's one of the things that is so marvelous about the time that I've had in special ed. When I went to St. Cloud's and Jefferson, the whole concept of special education, as they would call it, at that time, it really was putting people away.
Right.
So everybody, if you had a handicapped child, I even had met a family one time that when they had a handicapped child was born to them, they were recommended to put that child in an institution and forget that they even had the child, not any connection with the child. So people at St. Coletta's and Jefferson, I had, of course, in the school, we were involved with all of the parents who placed their children there, but they certainly were placing them in St. Coletta's, first of all, because it was an excellent program, but they were also, in reality, putting them away in a safe environment and that type of a thing. So one of the things that Eleanor and I did, we really teamed up on this, and it became a strong program. We tried to, we were really looking at the students more as what they were going to do when they were going to leave us. And, it was just at the time that people were beginning to think about handicapped people working in the community, living in the community. And so that was the very beginning of it. So when I first went to St. Coletta's, like all the boys ate in this building and all the girls here and all everything, there were no activities that brought anyone together like that. So we kind of changed the curriculum at the school. And so we integrated everyone and we changed it in, we put in the student council and we had dances and, all that type of thing.
Dorothy, how long were you at St. Coletta's?
I was at that St. Coletta's for 12 years.
12 years. What did you learn about yourself during that period of your life?
Well, for one thing, I guess I learned that I could, I don't know how I would say this. It was, in a way, it was kind of a shock for me to be away from the community. And if you think of it, it was kind of at the time when, after the Vatican Council, that things were changing so much in communities too. And I must say that as much as I had wanted to go there to do that, I was a little insecure as to how I was going to be an Adrian Dominican there. And what, it really worked quite well. I mean, I never have felt like removed from the community. And if anything, I probably felt more involved. Because
right.
Really conscious of being part of it and keeping myself, involved in everything. So, and I think it was a good experience for me. I think it made me a little more independent, or that type of thing.
What made you leave there?
Well, what happens sometimes when there's a change in administration, there is a change in the whole outlook
Yeah, philosophy, like, yeah, charisma, yeah.
That is what happened. Sister Sheila, who had hired me when I began there 12 years ago, had retired, and the new administration just did not, I just was not comfortable with things that were happening. So, and I actually resigned kind of in protest because of what was happening in the situation. And because Eleanor and I were so involved in the same type of program development, she also had resigned at the same time.
Mhm.
And that we came down, we went actually, we looked for several places. We went and interviewed at several different places. And then there was another St. Coletta's school at Palos Park, Illinois. And we came down from Wisconsin to interview there. And when we were driving down, we drove past the loop. I remember telling Eleanor, I've never been past the loop. So, in Chicago, it's very divided. If you lived on the north side,
Right.
the loop was the center, and so that was kind of funny that I passed the loop and we went out to Palos Park, which is so far removed from the north side. And so we were hired there at Palos, and
Oh, you were, okay.
she continued on in residential work, but I went to what we call the training center, where we were really working full time with getting people ready for supported employment in the
What kind of employment?
supported employment.
Okay, okay.
So what we did was we would hire staff, and they went out, like, this was the very beginning, the very basic problem. They went out and worked, like, say, at a grocery store, Jewel or big, Dom and the big grocery stores. They would get hired. They knew that Jewel knew that we were hiring them as a job coach. They would go out and learn the job, and then we would place a client there. And then the client would start working, but the store did not have to train them or work with them. And if they were slow and didn't get things done, the job coach would complete the job so that the company didn't lose any time. You know what I mean? They didn't have to say, like, well, all the carts are out on the parking lot and there's none in here, because the job coach would keep up with all that. So that was just the very beginnings of it. That was such a marvelous thing, because now you go out and see in all kinds of companies or agencies that people are working in the community.
Right, and so that you certainly were back at the beginnings of all of that, and you can see how that has gone forward with new people and new ideas, and you are a very significant part of that ministry. We don't have too much more time. I want to ask you a couple other questions, but I know you are very famous at St. Coletta's, and significantly with your work with the population of the people who were handicapped at that time. Do you ever run into any of them?
All the time, and we hear it all the time.
That's good. That's good. So you hope you can see yourself in there. Now, to the congregation, you participated in General Chapter that we just had.
I wasn't able to be a delegate.
Oh, you weren't a delegate, but anyway, neither was I. But what inspired you? What did you take, or energized you, or surprised you, very briefly, about that aspect of our life?
I think what it just proved to me when I listened to everything that was on live streaming. I think the thing that most impressed me was that we are alive and well, and
right.
We're concerned about the issues of the time. I don't feel like we're looking into ourselves as to anything. We're really, as we have always been, we're mission oriented, and we're
right.
And we want to be involved in all the things that are happening, and that's a blessing. I think that's the thing that's kept us strong as a congregation, is that we're all out looking and not inward looking. Mm-hmm. One of the important things that just happened is, I've been working on this resilient community proposal for like 3 years. And we just got word this week that McKinley Park was approved for funding from the congregation. So again, is a wonderful sign to me that we're looking out for the needs of the people. And in fact, that I love the idea of McKinley Park getting this, because our mission started in McKinley Park in 1911 at Our Lady of Good Counsel. That was when the Adrian Dominican Sisters came there, and we've been there since 1911, and we're still there helping.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so that certainly gives you some energy at this time. At this time of your life, where do you think the Spirit might be leading you? Hopefully you're able to pull back and let go somewhat.
Oh, I have definitely.
Yeah. But where do you think you're being led right now?
I love the fact that our ministry right now is called Prayer and Presence.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what I want to do at this point, and that I'm trying to do. And the prayer, it is such a blessing to be able to have more time, especially just for quiet.
Yes.
And and then also, but the presence has become such an important thing to me, because again, even people here, I'm living in an apartment building with 6 apartments. I mean, every person in this building, you come to get to know them, they all need God, and they're all searching for God. So if we can be a sign of God in their life, that's what I feel called to be right now. Okay. Even when I walk my dog in the neighborhood.
Okay. And what's your dog's name? What's your little friend's name?
Friend's name is Max.
Max, that's right. That's Max. Well, thank you. I know this is a brief time to go through the last 70, 80, I don't know how old you are. But anyway, we have had a long life. And it's nice to take time to kind of go back and look and see where God has called us and where we responded. And it hasn't always been, wonderful. We all have challenges, and we certainly have grown from those challenges. And so anyway, in the name of the congregation, Dorothy, I thank you for your willingness and openness to share, your story with us. And I know your dear friend that you've lived with for so long, Eleanor, for reasons beyond her control, she had to move in where her congregation is. And you seem to be resilient yourself in adjusting to this aspect of your life. So again, God bless you. Thank you.